they'll take it for what it is, and I think they'll appreciate for this task force to be as candid and as honest as possible. I don't think they're going to get offended.
No, I don't think they're offended, but I want,
yeah, but to that point, so let me tell you, there's a mechanism there. So when I create a MAC that it covers another commissioner's area, that commissioner can appoint people to that MAC. So the commissioner
that exists today.
Yeah. So the thing is, and we go now to a big picture.
Like you can kill the MAC depending on who you appoint to it.
Yeah, exactly. No, listen, you can.
I've seen commissioners.
So a commissioner can put somebody who's completely against it, and that person, you know.
That exists today?
Yes, no, that exists today. So, for example, the MACs that I've created, you know, that go outside of my boundaries have allowed, obviously, appointments by the commissioners who represent those areas. And that would always be a point. You know, if they wanted more representation, I mean, that would be something that could be negotiated. But again, it's the compass that we're using on what direction are we going to take. If the county honestly has a desire, and the task force, I think, can help communicate this. If we have a desire as a community to move forward and seek ways to try to encourage people to incorporate, then these are some of the barriers I think we need to eliminate. Because if you do things that don't make sense, it's going to be hard to get people to vote for that. You're not going to get people to vote to mitigate. You're not going to get people to vote for boundaries of a city that they don't necessarily make sense. So, you know, to the degree that we kind of set this on a path that, yes, we want to make things not necessarily easier, but, you know, lead to better outcomes and better decisions and well thought out maps and budgets and whatnot, that helps. So again, so the MAC is a starting process of an incorporation process. I mean, you already start kind of hobbled yourself if you do a MAC around a boundary that doesn't make sense. So, for example, if a MAC that I have, and I'll just use the example of one which is between Bird Road and Kendall Drive.
Staff, show it to us. So we can
West
see
of 137. Yeah, I'll show you the map.
Staff, can somebody on staff just show it to us so we can see it?
So this is my county commission district right here. This is the community council area blue. So I'm creating a MAC from here to here, west of 146, and in some parts west of 137. So imagine if this became a city, what happens with this? And this is all west of the turnpike. You know, the same thing here. In the southern part, from Kendall to 152nd, I proposed a MAC. But you have Commissioner Bell and Commissioner Moss. So what happens with those, if this area incorporates, what happens to these two pockets? And with these pockets won't be part of it. So it doesn't start to make sense. I mean, the one thing that brings the people out there in Western is that we live west of the turnpike. So that would be a natural boundary. It would create some compactness, which is one of the recommendations. And it's continuous. So these are things that make sense. But then for me to start the process with a MAC, I'm already hobbled because if this commissioner, which is Commissioner Soto, does not allow this area to be here, then how much sense can I make of this area from a long-term perspective? So those are the kind of things. So those are the kind of things I think we as a task force should give direction to the county commission. Look, you know, do things that make sense. Don't take the commissioner out of the process. At the end of the day, if there's significant opposition in that area, it's got to come back to the commission from the MAC for an incorporation vote.
Okay, we're going to go to Ms. Thank you.
Yeah.
We're going to go to Mr. Alexander, then Mr. Friedman, then the mayor. Mr. Alexander, sir.
I think we're here to make recommendations, and with the commissioners being rammed down their throat, I don't think we're ramming anything down their throat.
Let me make sure.
I understand.
I want to make sure because I want to go on record.
Sure.
Probably my choice of words sometimes is wrong. I'm just ramming. I didn't mean ramming down anybody's throat. No, we're not going to do. Mr. Zapata said we're going to do nothing like that. When it gets over there, they're going to do what they want anyway. But since they're going to do what they want everywhere anyway, just give me seconds. I was just wondering if there was an alternative that was more plausible, more in line with the way things have been done, that may, when it gets over there, receive a warmer reception so that it did get passed.
You want to make the recommendation more palpable.
Commissioner Zapata was talking about, which I don't know if that's formalized or not, where they get a commissioner that may be an area you're trying to incorporate may have a vote on your MAC. Is that only by custom or is that by the code?
Is that in the code? I'm not. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I mean, I did it in my MACs. In my MACs,
right,
it's incorporated into the resolution.
You were, you know,
the county attorney's trying to,
or is it something we need to?
I know the county attorney's trying to say something. What's the
On
issue?
that question, what we did in the individual MACs was we looked at because those MACs have to be created by ordinance. So we looked at what the populations were for the various commissioners and worked out in the proposed ordinance how much representation each commissioner would have. So I don't remember the breakdown in Commissioner Zapata's proposed max, because there were 3 total max, and one of them, I think we had one commissioner with 2 and another commissioner with 1. I think we did it based upon population. There's not anything specific in the code to doing it that way, but since this is adopted by ordinance, it has the same dignity as anything that's in the code.
So there's an ordinance already that, without anybody having to be friendly to another commissioner or whatever, that already allows them to have certain people, you know.
No, the code is silent as to that. But since MACs are created by ordinance, which wind up having the same dignity as the code itself, which is created by ordinance, the commissioner requested, I believe, as part of his MAC to give distribution.
I know, because he did it, and he felt it was appropriate. My question is, what happened was the next guy comes around, or the gentleman, lady, and they say, no, I don't want anybody involved tonight. Is it based on collegial issues, or is it by law?
Well, by law, if a commissioner goes, right now, if a commissioner goes outside his district, it's automatically excluded unless that particular commissioner agrees to put that in. In theory, I guess, if a commissioner was interested in going outside his district and getting consent from a commissioner, it probably would be, he may say, well, listen, I want to try to get that other commissioner's consent, so I'm going to provide in my proposed ordinance that I'm going to give representation. So it's not anything formal that's in the code, it's sort of a natural consequence of the way the code is currently drafted.
Okay, Mr. Friedman? Then the mayor.
Okay, in regards to, there's a couple of issues in here that link into this, and I don't pretend to be able to advise the city commissioners on how to consider this, but I think part of this has to be encompassing some of the recommendations that we have here. And his example is interesting because if he was not able to get the other commissioner to agree to that area, it would leave an enclave.
Correct.
And I think that's part of the things that should be sent as a friendly reminder that we should be looking at setting up these MAC boundaries to provide logical and contiguous boundaries, that we're not leaving enclaves, that there will be representation on both sides of the boundaries, and that ultimately it's up to the people to make the decision on whether this is going to go or not. So the commissioner does have the right to say, well, wait a minute, this is within my district, I was voted by my constituents, and I'm the representation, and I feel that this is not in their best interest in my district. But I think there should be a logical mechanism that is probably already there in the commissioners' minds to review this in relation to some of the overall policy recommendations of this task force. That, you know, we're looking at allowing more annexations and incorporations, that all of this be reviewed in some type of logical process.
Okay, I'm going to, the mayor, and then we're going to call the question. Mr. Mayor?
First of all, let's start by saying that the 13 commissioners are elected to serve the Miami-Dade County as a whole. They represent a certain area, but at the end of the day, and one of our biggest tasks that we have here is to look at what's going to happen at UMSA if this were to happen. So they cannot be looking at it as minute as their boundaries. That's one. What we started doing today, one of the first discussions we had was that any commissioner or the mayor, and we spoke about that, can create a MAC if the commissioners does not want to create the MAC. That's why I said we already did step in there, basically. Because we agreed to that. We voted on that. If the commission doesn't want to create a MAC in their city, another commissioner can do it, or the mayor can do it.
Well,
we said that.
Well,
there's no difference here.
You missed that meeting.
Okay, no problem. Got it.
But there's no difference here. I mean, what are we
You're saying
saying?
that ship has sailed.
That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, if not, they both conflict. If we're saying that we can create a MAC, that any commissioner, Mr. Zapata can create a MAC in Pepe Diaz's district, then, and we agreed to it and we voted on it, if the county